We're live this morning and we don't even know who's we're without our leader. We're all sitting there saying who is going to step up.
Yeah, it's after I hit live, I'm like, I didn't actually establish who was going to do the intro, but I don't know if it makes sense for me to be the one to do it.
You go ahead and do it, Jessica. I don't think I've ever seen you do it.
Oh God, I mean, there's a reason for that. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the transition to college. Because we're still pretty early on in the college year, so I'm sure a lot of freshmen are either starting to get settled or starting to complain about how they're not feeling settled yet. So it seems as good a time as any. I'm trying to think of me thinking about it, like I've had college more recently than some, so I do remember not feeling settled into college until my sophomore year, to be perfectly frank. So, I don't think it's all that unusual for freshmen to still be trying to figure everything out. But yeah, does anyone have any thoughts, any ideas? I have a couple, but
I have a question for you, Jessica. Were you not feeling settled academically, socially, or both?
way more socially than academically. I mean, I went into college not having a major. I was still undecided. So that I think was part of it, because a lot of my friends I eventually started making once I officially joined the English department, which I think made a difference, but also just I'm not good at talking to people. Like I'm a very talkative but shy person, which is a very unfortunate combination. So it took my roommate bullying me into joining the creative writing club my sophomore year before I started actually like making friends and getting to know people.
I always think this is a big time for homesickness, right? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you're in like maybe 2 months, the excitement, the nervousness, the grind starts. I always thought right around October, and it's parents' weekend, so it's like, or tends to be parents' weekend. But I think this is a tough time for homesickness. At least with my kids, it was. Now you're really missing home, friends, and I would imagine, I don't know, maybe someone with kids in college today could comment more on the social media aspect of it, because I remember hearing from, especially back girls' parents, that it was really difficult because they would see friends who are at the same school together, and the whole FOMO kind of missing out. So I think it's a big time for that too.
I mean, I don't have kids in college yet, but I used to be a college professor, so I can kind of see, it's like this is also the time where all the special events have ended, right? All the welcome to school. It's like now we're into like normal life, and I think that's for some harder than for others, But in terms of parents so often ask about, majors is a big concern, that and it's like, I mean, over half of our students will change their major. So to just be kind of, this is nothing that has to worry you in the first semester, It's like, if your kid is unsure, just let it be it's okay. It's probably gonna think about this decision for a year or two, and it will be fine. It's not like those are wasted years, and it's not like they have to know exact, they're still so young. But it is, I was thinking about a couple of things that I would tell my advisees. And the one was, if you think your kid is struggling academically, this is a time to ask them to sign FERPA so that you can talk to professors if it gets worse. Okay, because we are not allowed to talk to parents unless we have a written consent from the student. So, but on the other hand, I also say, don't talk to any professors unless it's really, really necessary, because I feel like half of college is to figure out how to live your own life. And it was astounding to me how many parents would call me instead of the student, and like right away with little things like, how can he make up for this homework assignment? And it's like, no, that is no longer your job. You know, you kind of need to let your kid set boundaries and figure them out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if there is like something really dramatic in the first year, you do want to be able, you know, to chat with teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I also think if there's issues, this is a great time for, a pep talk where, you know what, you've gotten this far. Think about where you were a year ago and you were trying to get your applications done. And, it's a year later and you're living in college if they're doing that. And, you got this kind of thing. You like that kind of pep talk, because I think maybe if you're like, for me, I was a big fish in a little pond when I went in high school. And then I go to college and I'm a little fish in a huge pond. And everybody else is, took the same classes. And so I wasn't special anymore. I mean, everybody had done the same things and everybody was like high achieving and had the same scores on their SATs. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, do I really belong here? And, so you have to think about, yeah, you do belong there, and yeah, it's tough, but look at how much you've accomplished. But I think that could be sometimes daunting if you're feeling like that. So
we're in the midst of this right now. We've got our first year in school, and I think about some of the things that we heard at parent orientation, and one of them was about this time of year, there are a couple things. Winter sets in if your kid is in school someplace where there's winter. And with winter comes, longer, darker days, and that affects your mood. And also, they're running out of money. Graduation gifts, the money has dwindled and all this other stuff. So then that affects their living. So it's getting darker and colder, and they have less money to do fun things or eat out. The novelty of the dining halls has worn off, and they realize this stuff isn't very good. All of this converges to producing or elevating homesickness, right? So even if they're not quite missing you, or if they don't express it that way, they are missing the cooking and things like that. One of the tools we have now that I didn't have for any of our other sons was video calls. And I find it really helpful because we're talking and now I can see the face when they're answering. I don't have to worry, was that were they posturing? Were they trying to protect me? I can see the face and be like, okay, that's true joy, or yeah, this is concerning him a little more than he's saying. So if you have a way, try the video calls. Not every day, and they never want you to video call them without having an appointment. Apparently it's against video calling etiquette. I don't know how I would know that, but
good to know, though. Good to know.
I heard it somewhere on the street.
Just to backtrack a little bit on what Francesca was saying, when my youngest went to orientation, it was in like the spring of his senior year, but he went down during the summer to pick his courses, right? And they had the parents come. It was some type of orientation day. And I remember we had our schedule and the kids were going to see their advisors as far as courses, and the parents had another meeting. We were set in that group, they would put you in days and times or whatever. Our group had to go to a whole separate building. We were in this room, and one of the professors comes in and says to us, okay, so there's really absolutely no reason you are here. I have nothing to say to you except we wanted to get you away from your kids. This is your kids' time to pick their classes, to talk to their advisor without the parents. And everybody, I thought it was fabulous because no one had any idea. There's another important meeting. They labeled it as something else. And he's like, so talk amongst yourselves. There's coffee over there. Grab something to eat. And we'll let you out of here in an hour. And I thought that was fantastic, but certainly set, Francesca, your message to us being, this is your kids' time, not your time. Let them figure it out. Let them talk to their advisor. And I just think it set the tone for us. So anyways, I'm kind of distracted from Kamira's video messaging, but when you were talking, it just reminded me of that. So
well, I think it's also about trust. I think they are so much smarter than we sometimes give them credit for. And but part of that is also to struggle,
Right.
not
Right.
every class will just go smoothly,
Mhm.
and they will, and also I've heard this from a few parents who says they were like, my kid comes home, especially at the beginning of college, they're talking all this nonsense. They make no sense to me anymore. They have all these ideas, and it's like, and some are really worried that they get indoctrinated with something. It just means they are being engaged. They will find wherever they want to be and whatever they, believe or not. But this can lead to, yes, something that might sound nonsensical for a while, but that's a process you go through to find out where you belong.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I wouldn't worry about that either. It let them just kind of explore.
Mhm.
I have
Okay,
advice. Oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
I was going to say, so this is about the time that they have fall break. Now, is fall break good or bad? If they're feeling homesick and they come home, is it good or bad? You know what I mean? There's, if they live close enough to come home for fall break. I mean, not all kids live close enough to. Is it worth it for 4 days to come home? So I struggle with that fall break
Mhm.
thing, because I don't know if it's necessarily helpful to kids.
Right.
Maybe like older kids, older college students, but I think for first year, I don't know if it helps. What do
Right.
you guys think?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I agree, because I remember someone telling me, in that big old world back there in college, when our kids were in college, they shouldn't come home for a while, and you shouldn't go see them. Like, they need to adjust. They need to get used to being. So Thanksgiving was always the first time most of my kids came home. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I
I know that. I mean, I know
either.
I was going to say that, a lot of schools start before Labor Day. And so some kids would go to school for a week or 2 weeks and then come home for Labor Day.
Mhm.
And I was like, just stay, kind of thing. So there's that too. I mean, I think they need to spend some time away.
Mhm.
And then they're actually more appreciative when they do come home.
Right. And alone. I think the other thing is really, it's okay for our kids to be alone for a little bit. It's okay for them not to be busy, to figure out how to be them and be by themselves. So I think that's like, it's okay. It's okay to not go out every night or do whatever. I think that was a message we sent too. Kamira, I think you were trying to, Jessica.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
sorry,
Jessica.
you can finish your sentence. I thought you were done with your sentence.
Melissa, did you see Melissa wrote in?
Oh yeah, do you want, I can put that up on the screen and read it. So let me do that. So Melissa says, something that gave me and my daughter peace of mind was her being able to call me when she had late classes, so she wasn't walking alone back to her dorm in the dark. We made sure she was still keeping track of her surroundings. And she also said, helpful for homesickness care packages.
Yeah.
I do remember loving every single time I got a care package. And then another comment from Karen says, my daughter's school has them leave campus for fall break. She had to come home for 4 days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's cost cutting. I'm being cynical here, but they don't have to feed them. They don't have to house them. Interesting.
It's good to catch up on sleep, though. So I think for that reason, fall break might be good, that they can just get like a solid week of good sleep.
Well, it also depends. Our daughter went to school 600 something miles away. Right. So that, to bring her home for fall break wasn't happening. No, I'm like, no, you've been there, 17 hours. You can stay.
Yeah.
And I will say, at the very least, when I was going to school, we had a lot more Skype, and now there's Discord, like all those various chatting apps where kids can still be keeping in touch with their high school friends. So I think that probably helps alleviate a lot of the loneliness and homesickness. At least it did for me throughout college, being able to stay close with my high school friends.
Yeah, I'm showing my age here, but I mean, I I would call home collect to talk to my parents. That's all I had when I was in school. And we would write letters. We had no phone. It was a payphone in the hall, that really old school. So anyway, but we make it, right? We make it. Our kids will make it. I think that's an important thing too. Most will make it.
I think it's important that parents prepare themselves to make it. I'm in these parent groups, college parent groups, and oh my gosh, some of the questions and information is wonderful, and some of it is, your child at this point really should be able to do that on their own, and you need to manage it. I don't think you need to source it. And so my advice I give to parents of high schoolers, once they hit high school, you should gradually wean yourself off of 24/7 management of them and monitoring, and also get them used to having that independence. And it's good for both of you, because I suspect that some of these things that I see going up, it's the parent, the student probably has not asked for help in this situation.
Yeah.
They may have mentioned something, and now the parent is going, full steam ahead and finding out all this stuff. And, the student probably already has it handled. If you ask your student, sometimes my student will say something to me, and I'll say, oh, perhaps you can consider. And then the moment I start to give a suggestion, he'll say, no, I've got it. I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I really think the big check is at Thanksgiving. I mean, I think this is when they're trying to find their friend group, and they're trying to figure out, like we've talked about before, that you go from going to school from 8 to 3:30 or 3, and then doing something after school, and then coming home and then getting homework done. And now you have these huge chunks of time that you kind of have to figure out how to manage, which basically is less classes and more time.
Right.
And that's, and they have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it'd be great to spend all day hanging out on the quad playing Frisbee, but because nobody's telling you can't.
Right.
They have to figure out that, no, wait, this time when I don't have class, maybe I should be using it for homework or studying.
So here's a question along your line of Thanksgiving being a good check-in, Echo. What do you do if your kid comes home at Thanksgiving and says, I don't want to go back? Like, how long what's your timeline as far as give it a semester, give it a year, and I know that would depend on what was going on, certainly. But if it's just, I don't like it, I don't want to go back. Like, what do you guys have a minimum of, hey, you've got to give it a year, or you've got to give it the full semester? Like, what do you do? How do you know what's a really difficult situation and what's, hey, kid, you got to kind of buck up here and learn to deal with some tough circumstances?
We had that with one of ours. And there are a couple of things, like you said, there are individual circumstances. So you have to ask why and really listen to why, because it could be more than, oh, nobody likes me. But when we had that situation, there were some very practical things. Well, you have to finish the semester if you are going to transfer to another college, right? So let's figure out how you can cope with transferring. Let's think about where you want to go, and is it too late? Do we need to make some calls? In the meantime, when you're finishing up this semester, you have to do the best you can do. So you may not be seeing the problematic people because you're trying to get the best grades so that you can transfer. It's not so simple. It's not like, deciding you want to see a different movie. So when you communicate that with them, that you have to strategize, and if they really are still working towards it after you've said that, then there's another place for them, and that's okay, because these are gambles. We think we know a lot about these schools, but you don't know until you're there if it's a good fit. And if it isn't, it's fine. There's another school out there that may be a good fit. Exactly. Or I know a student right now who is at a particular school only because he really didn't take the application process seriously in high school. So he missed the application due dates for the schools that he probably would have wanted to go to. So he is now applying to those schools. He will never do that again. And he will never make that mistake again. And I'm sure that there were parents in his high school who were looking at his parents like, why aren't you forcing him? But he'll probably never make that mistake again, because he has spent a semester, possibly an entire year at a school that really wouldn't have been his choice at all.
Correct. Right.
Well, I think, you know, with in terms of, is this the right school for me, especially when we talk about bigger schools, I don't think it's ever about the school, right? As a whole, it's about who are the people around you, and are they a good fit? Because if you go somewhere with 30,000 students, it's not the school, it's whoever is around you, you know? And so maybe it's also about changing whatever clubs you're in, changing a roommate, changing a major, you know? So that could also be.
Mhm.
That's why it's so hard to pick a school, because you can do as many campus tours as you want. At the end of the day, you will have a good experience because you like your friends and your professors,
Mhm.
you know, not because there's a beautiful fountain in the middle, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, or because of the environment. When our son didn't like it, it was the environment. It was the surrounding environment, not necessarily the school. The surrounding environment was such that it didn't matter what was happening on campus, because when he and his buddies left campus, there were locals who were screaming racial epithets at them from the car and stuff, and that is not conducive to 4 years of getting to know yourself and studying and becoming an
Sure.
adult.
Right.
But
Right.
he was like, I can't do this. And he came from an environment where he had never experienced that. So
Mhm.
sometimes I always tell the people, when you're looking at schools, look for the area around the school too, because that, you know, that also counts. Sometimes schools will gear kids. It happened in the high school that my kids went to. They'll gear kids to these great small schools. And then I'll say, I'm not sure you want a Palestinian Muslim kid going into that community.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
check out the community first. You can't just, you know, say it's good for everyone.
Mhm. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, you know, I also think, you know, saying this pragmatically, when something like this, you know, when they're not feeling right at the school, and they're talking about transferring or not going back, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? We've invested a lot of money right now. So, you know, let's finish off the semester strong. We're not getting our money back. Let's just, you know, it's not a cheap endeavor, you know? So there is that side of it. It's as cold-blooded as that sounds. Sometimes you have to kind of say, you know what? We made a decision together. I've kept up my part of the bargain. Now I'm asking you to keep up yours and just finish strong. And then we'll reevaluate when you come home at the holidays. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we need to be upfront with our kids about this huge, I mean, very, very expensive endeavor we're doing for them. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's a big one too. It's a family decision when a child goes off to college, and it comes with a really hefty bill. I mean, a lot more than when we went to school. I don't know about you guys, but my college room and board and tuition was $10,000 a year.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So there's that. I don't know. Maybe
And
I
if you're
sound
financial, no, that's very real. If you're a financial aid student and you want to transfer, you really have to talk to the schools that you're applying to, because a lot of schools don't give aid or much aid for people who are transferring in the middle of the year. You may have to stick it out for the full academic year before you can switch. So you have to consider these things. So if your child is coming to you, you need to be prepared to have that discussion with them.
Which I think just speaks, a lot of these points speak to, and Jessica, we have that article about is your kid really ready for college? To really preparing them. And it's okay to take maybe a gap year or a year off, or go to community college for a year, because whether it's the financial, the social, the environment, the culture of the school, that is all really important. So, you know, I think for me, what I'm taking away from this is making sure your child is prepared, because I think, you know, college is not for kids who are not ready for it. So that's my final word. Anyone else? Anything else to wrap up?
Well,
Good luck.
And Kamira, are you doing something tomorrow? Tuesdays with Kamira?
Yes, absolutely. So tomorrow it's funny that we're talking college. It's welcome to college. And it's the ins and outs for families of first generation college students. There are a lot of families out there that they're sending their first year, and their first year is the first person in their family to go to college. Or you have a high school sophomore, junior, senior who will be the first generation to go to college. You have questions. There are things that you don't know. There are things you're hearing, but not from official sources. So we're going to have someone talk to us about that. And even if you're not a first generation family, you should listen, because there are things that other families should know. I was on a group, in a parent group, and somebody asked a question. And the question was about family weekend. And basically what they described was what would be a high school open night, because they didn't know what college was. And so the person who responded first responded as if like, you don't know what happens. Well, no, they don't know what happens. And I saw that, I was like, that has to be a first gen family. And no, they don't know. And so even if you're not a first gen family, it's helpful to get to know what it is from their perspective, and knowing how you could answer a question like that with sensitivity and full of information and be helpful.
For sure. For sure. Great. Sounds interesting.
of
And
course,
that's tomorrow. What time, Kamira?
Thank you. I was getting ready to say, I keep forgetting. We are doing Lunch and Learns in October, and it went over well last week. So tomorrow it's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's our Lunch and Learn with Amy Hofstetler. Thank you, Mindy.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Any final words?
Well, I believe Francisca also has a thing she's going to be doing on Wednesday, if you wanted to.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna do for the next 3 Wednesdays at 1:30. We're gonna do a 10-minute advice session. This month we are gonna do this with Phyllis Fagel. She wrote the Middle School Matters book, and we are gonna talk about not college, but how much freedom you should give your middle schoolers, and when you step in there, and when you should just let them figure it out.
Great.
Oh,
Okay.
I love it. That's a series.
One more comment from Melissa, if we wanna share it. I caution against forcing a kid to finish out a semester if they're suffering. Remember, first semester freshman year is when a lot of sexual assaults happen. Also, lots of hazing. And yeah, I do think. I mean, I think a lot of it's just you gotta play it by ear. You gotta pay attention to the very specific, like
And it's
Kamara said,
situational.
you need
I
to
think
check
it's
with them to
situational.
see why it
Right.
is that they want to
Right.
leave.
It's situational. It depends on the situation and the kid, the circumstances.
And I recommend encouraging them to talk to mental health on campus.
If they can find it.
That is true. I mean,
Get in.
it's a hassle, but I mean, I used it and it, helped me out quite a bit. So I think once you eventually get it sorted out, it does work wonders.
But Eka makes a good point. If medical services, whether it's emotional or physical, are difficult to access, what your student can do, again, I learned during one of our parent sessions, is ask, and a parent may need to step in here, ask for a referral from the medical team at the school. They are happy to refer you if your child has private insurance. They are happy to refer you outside so that your child does not have to wait. Because I hear stories all the time of kids having to wait for whether it's physical or emotional, because there's only so much that the college team can handle. So if your child has private insurance, be sure to ask, where can we send them off campus?
Great. Good to know.
Sounds good.
I guess that's everything. Thank you all for coming, and we will see you tomorrow and then on Monday,
And hopefully Wednesday.
and Wednesday and Thursday theoretically. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye.